Good morning, students. T.S. Eliot was someone who developed Matthew Arnold's way of critiquing a work. As we have discussed in our previous lectures that how romantics were much more interested in feelings, emotions and imagination, Matthew Arnold was the first critic who took poetry as an object. Although the poems written by Matthew Arnold have some romantic association, but his way of critiquing a work is anti-romantic. He was then followed by T.S. Eliot and then new criticisms like I.A. Richards, John Crowe Ransom, so on and so forth. All these critics like Matthew Arnold, T.S. Eliot, J.C. Ransom, I.A. Richards fall under the category of objective theorists. They focused more on poetry as an object which is self-contained or self-referential. The famous example of poetry as an object, or you can say self-referential, is The Waste Land. So it was Matthew Arnold who parted himself away from romantics and brought out a new direction in the subject literary criticism. And later he was followed by other critics like T.S. Eliot, so on and so forth. So in this video we are going to discuss what T.S. Eliot has to talk about in his essay Tradition and Individual Talent, which was published in 1919 in the magazine called The Egoist. It is also important for you to remember the chronology of all the essays written by T.S. Eliot. Just now there was a college lecturer exam, and in that examination the chronology of all the essays written by T.S. Eliot was asked. So if you are preparing for UGC NET or GATE examination, here you must remember how these articles were published. Beginning with Tradition and Individual Talent, which was published in 1919. After that came Hamlet and His Problems in 1920. And then Metaphysical Poets in 1921. And then Homage to John Dryden, 3 essays on the poetry of the 17th century, which was published in 1924. Now before moving forward, if you are preparing for UGC NET examination or GATE examination in English literature, then I highly suggest you to go for the study material we provide to the students in order to accelerate your preparation. I'm sure it will save hundreds and hours of your time, and you will have me by your side to guide you. You can check the link in the description below to know more about study material. Now without any further delay, let's begin this topic. So as just now we have discussed that Matthew Arnold was hesitating a little bit while parting away himself from romanticism. He tried to innovate something and put forth some ideas on how we look at literary criticism. According to him, in the function of criticism at the present time, it is a critic who uses their critical thinking to create new ideas. It is a critic's job to discover new things, and so Matthew Arnold was determined to figure out new way how literary criticism should be studied. So he gave a new direction on how to critique a poem by parting himself away from romanticism. Now it was T.S. Eliot who took this new direction to a great extent. T.S. Eliot was much more bold and confident enough to replace the romanticism with a new kind of criticism. He replaced feelings, emotions and imagination of romanticism with his own history, culture and tradition. So according to T.S. Eliot, a great poet is one who carries within himself a tradition. A great poet always knows how a poem should be written in the past and how he can use the tradition to write his own poem. He follows a tradition and fuses his own individual talent into this tradition to bring out a new piece of work. For instance, if you want to write a love poem, what you will do is you will go back to Shakespeare's sonnet which he has written on love, and you follow a tradition on how to write a love poem. Now when you are writing your love poem by following a tradition of what Shakespeare has written or any other writers like Robert Burns or Pablo Neruda has written on love, you are following a tradition, and in following the tradition you are fusing your individual talent in order to create a new piece of work. Often we think that the new generation is better than the older generation. We think that the people who were living during 15th century or 16th century were inferior to us. But T.S. Eliot argues that it is a wrong point of view. We must look on to the dead poets. According to him, a great poet is one who carries within himself a tradition of all those poets who have written the poems on the subject he is writing down. If we want to be a good poet, then we must be capable enough to remember what we have already read, and we must be capable enough to recall what we have read so that we can write our own poem in a better way. We must be able to follow a tradition and fuse it with our individual talent. The love poem you are writing down is not separated from the tradition. Shakespeare too had followed the tradition of some other ancient or Greek writer. So a great poet always remembers what is in the tradition and he writes his own work according to this tradition. So the love poem you are writing down will get its value when it is viewed in sense of love poems written by Shakespeare or Pablo Neruda or Elizabeth Browning or Robert Browning. So in order to become a great poet, you must not confuse that dead poets were the inferior poets. A great poet is always the one who carry within himself a tradition, who carry within himself the tradition of dead poets. We become better just because by following all the poets which have already been passed our way. So I hope you understood what is tradition and individual talent. Now if you find the video worth your time, then don't forget to subscribe the channel for more updates on English literature. That's it for this video. Thank you.